Sir, you need to move to the back. This section is for our premium passengers only. The flight attendant's voice carried across the cabin as cameras started rolling. Marcus Chen looked up from his phone, his expression unchanged. He wore faded jeans, a gray hoodie, and carried a worn leather briefcase. Nothing about him screamed wealth or power. To everyone watching, he was just another passenger being told he didn't belong. The woman standing over him, Sarah Mitchell, tapped her tablet impatiently. "Sir, did you hear me? You're in the wrong section." Marcus held up his boarding pass. "Seat 1A. First class." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "That has to be a mistake. Let me see your ID." Around them, 12 passengers had their phones out. Twitter user @Skywatcher was already live tweeting the confrontation. Have you ever watched someone's entire world change in 45 minutes? Because these real-life stories and black stories show how touching stories can become life stories that reshape entire industries. The departure board above Gate 23 flashed red. Flight 447 to Chicago. Boarding complete in 37 minutes. Sarah examined Marcus's boarding pass like it was counterfeit currency. Her colleague, Jessica, approached from the galley. "Problem?" Jessica whispered, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "This gentleman seems confused about his seat assignment," Sarah replied, her tone suggesting Marcus was either lying or incompetent. Marcus remained seated, buckled in, briefcase at his feet. "Ma'am, I understand there might be confusion. Could you please check your system?" Sarah's fingers flew across her tablet. She frowned, tapped it again, then shook her head. "Sir, our records show you purchased an economy ticket. You'll need to move to your correct seat in coach." "That's incorrect," Marcus said quietly. He pulled out his phone and showed her his mobile boarding pass. "First class, seat 1A. Paid for 3 weeks ago." An elderly white man in seat 2A leaned forward. "Son, maybe you should just take your real seat. No need to cause trouble." Sarah nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Sir, are you sure you didn't mean to book coach? These mistakes happen when people aren't familiar with the booking process." The condescension hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He reached into his briefcase and retrieved a platinum airline status card, placing it on the tray table. 340,000 miles flown with Atlantic Airways, he said. Platinum status for 6 consecutive years. Sarah barely glanced at it. "Anyone can get those cards online now. Sir, I'm going to need you to gather your belongings and move to your assigned seat." At Skywatcher's fingers moved rapidly across her phone screen. Live, black passenger being systematically humiliated on Atlantic Airways Flight 447. "This is insane. Atlantic discrimination." The tweet was retweeted 47 times in 2 minutes. Captain James Rodriguez emerged from the cockpit. At 52, he commanded respect through presence alone. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his uniform pressed to military precision. "What's the situation?" he asked Sarah, not looking at Marcus. "Passenger in the wrong seat, won't move to coach where he belongs." Rodriguez sized up Marcus with a glance. Hoodie, jeans, sneakers. His assessment was immediate and wrong. "Sir, you're holding up departure. I need you to take your correct seat immediately." Marcus looked up calmly. "Captain, I'm in my correct seat. First class, 1A. Here's my boarding pass, my ID, and my frequent flyer card." Rodriguez didn't look at any of them. "Son, I've been flying for 15 years. I know when someone's trying to scam an upgrade." "Sarah, call ground security." The passengers in first class shifted uncomfortably. A woman in 3B started recording with her phone. A businessman in 4A looked up from his laptop, frowning. Marcus pulled out his phone and began recording. "For the record, it's 2:47 p.m., Flight 447. I'm being asked to leave my paid first-class seat, despite having proper documentation. Sir, put that phone away, Rodriguez commanded. You're being disruptive. I'm documenting discrimination, Marcus replied evenly. Sarah was already on her radio. Ground control, we need security at gate 23. Passenger refusing to comply with crew instructions. The man in 2A shook his head. Just move to coach, buddy. You're making this harder than it needs to be. But the woman in 3B spoke up. Wait, he showed you his boarding pass. Why aren't you checking it? Sarah's face reddened. Ma'am, please don't interfere. This gentleman clearly purchased an economy ticket and is trying to get a free upgrade. How do you know that? The woman pressed. Experience, Sarah replied curtly. Marcus made a phone call. The conversation was brief, his voice low. Yeah, I'm running late. Start without me. I'll handle this personally. Rodriguez overheard. Handle what? Sir, who are you calling? Marcus didn't answer. He was taking notes on his phone, documenting every word, every action. At Skywatcher's follower count jumped by 300 as her live stream gained traction. Comments flooded in. This is 2025. How is this still happening? Sue them. Record everything. The gate agent's voice echoed through the terminal. Final boarding call for Flight 447 to Chicago. All remaining passengers, please board immediately. 2 security officers approached. Mike Santos, a 20-year veteran, and Lisa Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname. What's the problem? Santos asked. Rodriguez pointed at Marcus. Passenger in wrong seat, refusing to move, being disruptive. Santos looked at the scene. A well-dressed man sitting calmly in first class, surrounded by crew members and passengers with phones out. Sir, can I see your boarding pass? Marcus handed it over without protest. Santos examined it carefully, compared it to Marcus's ID, then looked at his radio. This shows first class, seat 1A, Santos said to Rodriguez. It's clearly fraudulent, Sarah interjected. He's trying to scam an upgrade. Santos looked at her skeptically. Ma'am, these boarding passes come directly from your system. How would it be fraudulent? Sarah faltered. Well, these people know how to manipulate the system. The words hung in the air. Even passengers who hadn't been paying attention looked up. These people wasn't subtle. Marcus remained perfectly still, but his eyes met Santos's. The security officer had heard those words before, understood their meaning. Sir, Santos said to Marcus, would you mind stepping off the aircraft for a moment, just to verify everything with the gate agent? It was a reasonable request delivered respectfully. Marcus nodded and stood. As he gathered his briefcase, his phone buzzed. A text message flashed briefly on the screen before he closed it. The woman in 3B caught a glimpse. Board meeting moved to conference room A, emergency session. She frowned, wondering what kind of emergency board meeting a coach passenger would know about. The departure board now showed Flight 447 delayed 23 minutes. Ground Supervisor Janet Williams arrived at Gate 23 with purposeful strides. She'd been with Atlantic Airways for 12 years, worked her way up from baggage handler to supervisor. She prided herself on handling difficult situations. What's the hold-up? She asked Santos. Passenger verification, he replied, handing her Marcus's documents. Janet examined everything with theatrical thoroughness. Boarding pass, ID, frequent flyer card. She looked from the documents to Marcus, then back to the documents. Mr. Chen, these appear to be in order. However, given the crew's concerns about your behavior, I think it's best if we reseat you in coach for this flight. Marcus's voice remained level. What behavior? I was sitting quietly in my assigned seat. You are being argumentative with the flight crew. I was providing documentation when they claimed I was in the wrong seat. Janet's expression hardened. Sir, arguing with me won't help your cause. You can take your assigned coach seat, or you can take the next flight. Those are your options. Back on the plane, at Skywatcher's live stream had exploded. The hashtag Atlantic Airways discrimination was trending. Her viewer count hit 1,500 and climbing. Her commentary was running live. They've forced him off the plane now. This man has a first-class ticket, showed multiple forms of ID, and they're treating him like a criminal. This is what discrimination looks like in 2025? Comments poured in faster than she could read them. Save this video as evidence. What's his name? He needs a lawyer. Atlantic Airways stock is going to tank. Someone find out who this guy is. Inside the terminal, other passengers from the flight had gathered to watch. Several were recording. A teenage girl was streaming on TikTok. A businessman was updating his LinkedIn feed. Marcus looked at his watch. A habit, perhaps, but Janet noticed it was expensive. Very expensive. More than her monthly salary expensive. Sir, I need your decision. Coach seat or next flight? May I speak with your district manager? Marcus asked. Janet laughed. The district manager? Sir, I'm the senior supervisor on duty. I have full authority here. I understand your position, Marcus replied. However, I'd like to escalate this to your district manager. You can file a complaint online like everyone else. Several first-class passengers had come out to watch. The woman from 3B, now identified as Dr. Patricia Voss, stepped forward. Excuse me, but I was on that plane. This man was sitting quietly in his seat. He showed his boarding pass, his ID, everything. Why exactly is he being removed? Janet turned to her. Ma'am, this is between us and Mr. Chen. Please return to your seat. I'm a paying customer too, Dr. Voss replied. And I'm witnessing what appears to be discrimination. A businessman from first class joined her. I saw the whole thing. The flight attendant never checked his documents properly. She just assumed he was in the wrong seat. Janet felt the situation slipping away from her. More passengers were gathering, phones were everywhere. She needed to reassert control. Sir, she said to Marcus, you can take the coach seat I'm offering, or you can leave the airport. Those are your only options. Marcus pulled out his phone and made another call. This one lasted 47 seconds. His voice was too low for most people to hear, but Dr. Voss was close enough to catch fragments. Urgency board meeting, conference room A, now. Dr. Voss frowned. Board meeting? Marcus ended the call and addressed the gathered crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this delay. I know you all want to get to Chicago on time. His tone was different now, more authoritative. Several passengers noticed the change. Janet sensed something shifting. Sir, who are you calling? My office. Marcus replied simply. Your office? Marcus reached into his briefcase and withdrew a business card holder. He selected one card and handed it to Janet. She read it, and her face went pale. Marcus Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Chen Industries. The gathered passengers pressed closer, trying to see. Dr. Voss read over Janet's shoulder and gasped. Oh my God, she whispered. The businessman from first class pulled out his phone and started Googling. His eyes widened as he read. Holy shit, he muttered. Chen Industries, they're worth billions. At Skywatcher caught the exchange on her live stream. Wait. Did someone just say billions? Chat, what's happening? Who is Chen Industries? Her viewers were already researching. Chen Industries just announced a $2.4 billion revenue year. They own like 847 companies. This guy isn't just some random passenger. Atlantic Airways is about to get sued into oblivion. Janet stared at the business card. Her hands were shaking slightly. Mr. Chen, this doesn't change anything. You were being disruptive. But her voice lacked conviction now. Marcus looked at his watch again. In about 3 minutes, you're going to receive a call from your headquarters. I suggest you answer it. What kind of call? The kind that comes from your board of directors. The crowd had grown to about 30 people. Airport security was trying to manage the situation, but the live streams were multiplying. Atlantic Airways discrimination had over 2,000 tweets now. Captain Rodriguez appeared, looking flustered. "What's going on out here? We need to depart." Santos filled him in quietly. Rodriguez's expression changed as he listened. "CEO of what?" Rodriguez asked. "Chin Industries," Santos replied. "Major corporation, billions in revenue." Rodriguez looked at Marcus with new eyes. The hoodie and jeans didn't look so casual anymore. They looked like the outfit of someone who didn't need to impress anyone. Janet's radio crackled. "Supervisor Williams, please contact headquarters immediately. Priority 1. She looked at Marcus, who checked his watch again. "Right on schedule," he said quietly. Dr. Voss stepped closer to Marcus. "Sir, I'm sorry this happened to you. This is completely unacceptable." "Thank you," Marcus replied. "But this isn't about me anymore." "What do you mean?" Marcus looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording everything, at the airport security trying to manage a situation that had grown beyond their control. "This is about making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else." At Sky Watcher's live stream viewer count hit 3,000. Major news outlets were starting to pick up the story. Atlantic Airways' stock price, which had been stable all day, dropped by 1.2% in the last 15 minutes. Janet's radio crackled again. "Supervisor Williams, CEO Patricia Vance needs to speak with you immediately." Janet looked at Marcus, then at the business card in her hand, then at the crowd of witnesses recording everything. "This is about to get very interesting," Dr. Voss muttered to the businessman beside her. Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents that would change everything. "Actually," he said to Janet, "there's something else you should know." The crowd leaned in, sensing that whatever came next would be the moment everything changed. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. "Board is assembled, awaiting your call." He looked up at Janet, at Captain Rodriguez, at Sarah, who had joined them from the plane. "Shall we discuss this inside? I think you're going to want privacy for this conversation." The gate area had transformed into an impromptu amphitheater. Passengers sat on chairs, stood against windows, and leaned against pillars. The live streams had multiplied. At Skywatcher now had 4,000 viewers. 3 other passengers were streaming simultaneously. Marcus stood calmly in the center, his briefcase open, documents arranged methodically on a nearby chair. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying easily across the space. "I want to apologize for the delay. I know many of you have connections to make, families to see, business to conduct." Janet Williams stood frozen, Patricia Vance's direct number displayed on her phone screen. She hadn't made the call yet. "Before we resolve this situation," Marcus continued, "I think everyone deserves to understand what's really happening here." He pulled out a leather portfolio and opened it. The first document was a stock ownership certificate. 6 months ago, Chen Industries acquired a 23% stake in Atlantic Airways. The words hit the crowd like a physical force. Gasps, muttered curses, someone saying, "No way," loud enough for everyone to hear. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "That's impossible. I would have heard about a major acquisition like that." Marcus looked at him calmly. "Captain Rodriguez, you've been with Atlantic Airways for 15 years. Excellent safety record, by the way. I've reviewed your file." Rodriguez's face went white. "You've reviewed my file?" Chen Industries reviews all key personnel files for companies in our investment portfolio. Standard due diligence. Sarah Mitchell, who had been lurking at the edge of the crowd, suddenly understood the magnitude of what had just happened. She'd discriminated against someone who effectively owned nearly a quarter of the airline. Dr. Voss was recording with her phone, but she lowered it slightly. "Mr. Chen, are you saying you own part of Atlantic Airways?" 23%, Marcus confirmed. which makes Chen Industries the second largest shareholder. He pulled out another document. Atlantic Airways, fiscal year 2024. Total revenue, $8.2 billion. Chen Industries investment, $1.9 billion. The businessman from first class was frantically taking notes. This is incredible. This guy isn't just wealthy, he's one of the owners of the airline. At Skywatcher's stream was exploding with comments. He owns the airline. This is the best plot twist ever. Atlantic Airways is so screwed. Someone's getting fired in real time. Marcus reached into his briefcase again. There's more context you should have. He produced a thick folder labeled Atlantic Airways Corporate Account Summary. Chen Industries books approximately 847 flights per year with Atlantic Airways. Our annual travel expenditure with this airline, $1.2 million. Janet finally found her voice. Mr. Chen, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, Marcus interrupted gently. That's the point. A customer's treatment shouldn't depend on their net worth or their position. It should be consistent and respectful. He opened the folder and pulled out several pages. My personal account with Atlantic Airways. Platinum status for 6 consecutive years. 340,000 miles flown. Last year alone, I took 63 flights with this airline. Captain Rodriguez was staring at the documents like they might disappear if he blinked. Sir, we had no way of knowing. Captain, that's exactly the problem, Marcus replied. You made assumptions based on my appearance. You never checked my credentials. You called security without verifying the facts. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Mitchell, Marcus said, consulting a document. 8 years with Atlantic Airways. Generally positive performance reviews. 2 customer complaints in your file, both involving passengers of color. The implication hung in the air like a blade. Dr. Voss stepped closer. Mr. Chen, what happens now? Marcus looked at his watch. In about 90 seconds, Janet's going to get another call from headquarters, because right now, there's an emergency board meeting happening in Atlantic Airways' Chicago. As if on cue, Janet's phone rang. The caller ID showed Patricia Vance, CEO. Marcus nodded to her. You should take that. Put it on speaker. Janet's hands were shaking as she answered. Ms. Vance? Janet, is Marcus Chen with you? The CEO's voice was tense. Yes, ma'am. Put him on the phone, now. Marcus stepped forward. Hello, Patricia. Marcus, I just got out of an emergency board meeting. What the hell is happening at Gate 23? The crowd pressed closer. This was better than any movie. Patricia, I'm on flight 447 to Chicago. I was denied service and removed from my paid first-class seat due to what I can only characterize as racial discrimination. Silence on the other end of the call. Then, please tell me you're joking. I'm afraid not. The incident has been live-streamed by multiple passengers. It's trending on social media. Your stock is down 1.4% in the last hour. Jesus Christ. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed the screen to the crowd. Multiple social media feeds were visible, all showing the hashtag Atlantic Airways discrimination trending. Patricia, are you familiar with Section 12.3 of our shareholder agreement? Another pause. The Material Incident Clause. Correct. Discrimination against passengers constitutes a material incident that triggers a governance review. Dr. Voss whispered to the businessman, he's not just complaining, he's activating legal procedures. Marcus? Patricia's voice came through the speaker. What do you need? First, I need your flight crew to understand that they've created a significant legal and public relations crisis for Atlantic Airways. Captain Rodriguez was staring at the phone like it might explode. Second, I need immediate corrective action that demonstrates Atlantic Airways' commitment to equal treatment of all passengers. Whatever you need. Marcus looked around the crowd, at the phones still recording, at Janet's pale face, at Sarah, who looked like she might faint. And third, Patricia, I need you to understand that this isn't about me. It's about the thousands of passengers who experience discrimination every year but don't have the resources or platform to fight back. The crowd was silent now. Even the live stream comments had slowed as people absorbed what they were witnessing. Marcus, I'm authorizing whatever actions you deem appropriate. Full authority. Marcus nodded. Thank you. I'll have recommendations within the hour. He ended the call and looked around the gate area. 50 people were staring at him. Multiple live streams were broadcasting to thousands more. There's one more thing you should know, Marcus said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a final document. This one was different, more official-looking, with multiple signatures and seals. Last year, Atlantic Airways received an anonymous donation of $500,000 to fund diversity and inclusion training. He held up the document. The donation came from the Chen Foundation, my foundation. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Sarah actually gasped out loud. I've been trying to help this airline improve its culture for over a year, Marcus continued. Today, I experienced firsthand why that help is desperately needed. At Skywatcher's voice came through her live stream. Chat, are you getting this? This man has been trying to help the airline and they discriminated against him. This is unreal. Marcus closed his briefcase with deliberate precision. Now, shall we discuss how to ensure this never happens again? Janet's phone rang again. This time it was the Atlantic Airways legal department. The real work was about to begin. Conference Room A at Atlantic Airways headquarters was normally used for quarterly reviews and budget meetings. Today, it had become the epicenter of a corporate crisis. Patricia Vance sat at the head of the mahogany table, surrounded by 8 board members, the company's legal team, and her senior vice presidents. The room's video wall displayed 3 feeds: the live stream from Gate 23, Atlantic Airways stock chart showing a steady decline, and a Twitter analytics dashboard tracking Atlantic Airways discrimination. Patch Mr. Chen through to the main screen, Patricia ordered. Marcus appeared on the 75-inch display, standing calmly in the gate area with Janet Williams beside him. The crowd of passengers was still gathered, phones still recording. Marcus, you have the floor, Patricia said. Marcus had positioned himself so the crowd could hear both sides of the conversation. This wasn't going to be a private settlement discussion. This was going to be transparency in real time. Thank you, Patricia. Before we discuss solutions, I think the board needs to understand the full scope of what happened here. He gestured to Sarah Mitchell, who had reluctantly joined the group at the gate podium. Mr. Mitchell, would you please tell the board what you said when you first approached me? Sarah's voice was barely audible. I told you that section was for premium passengers only, despite the fact that I was holding a first-class boarding pass? Yes. And when I showed you my platinum frequent flyer card, I said anyone could get those cards online. Board member David Kim leaned forward in Chicago. Ms. Mitchell, what made you assume Mr. Chen's documents were fraudulent? The question hung in the air. Sarah looked around desperately, seeking an escape from a truth everyone already knew. Marcus answered for her. I'll save Ms. Mitchell the discomfort of answering. She made assumptions based on my appearance. A black man in casual clothes couldn't possibly belong in first class. Patricia rubbed her temples. Marcus, what are your immediate demands? Let me present the facts first, then we'll discuss solutions. Marcus pulled out his tablet and connected it to his phone's hotspot. Within seconds, he was sharing his screen with the conference room. Atlantic Airways financial performance, Q4 2024. Total passengers 47.2 million. Customer satisfaction rating, 3.2 out of 5. Industry average, 3.8. The board members were taking notes furiously. Discrimination complaints filed with the Department of Transportation against Atlantic Airways in 2024, 147. That's 43% higher than the industry average. Patricia's face was grim. Marcus, we weren't aware the numbers were that high. Because your complaint resolution system is designed to discourage reporting, not encourage it. Marcus pulled up another slide. Chen Industries' annual travel spending breakdown. Atlantic Airways, $1.2 million. American Airlines, $800,000. Delta, $650,000. The implications were clear. Atlantic Airways was getting the largest share of a multi-million-dollar corporate travel budget. However, Marcus continued, given today's incident, Chen Industries will be reviewing all vendor relationships for alignment with our corporate values. Board member Sarah Rodriguez spoke up. Mr. Chen, what would constitute appropriate resolution from your perspective? Marcus looked around the gate area, at the passengers still watching, at the live streams still broadcasting. First, immediate termination of all personnel involved in the discriminatory actions. Sarah Mitchell's knees buckled slightly. Captain Rodriguez closed his eyes. Second, implementation of comprehensive bias training for all customer-facing staff within 30 days. Patricia nodded. Agreed. Third, establishment of an anonymous reporting system for discrimination incidents, managed by a third-party organization. Also agreed. Fourth, creation of a $500,000 fund dedicated to diversity and inclusion initiatives. The board members exchanged glances. $500,000 was significant, but not catastrophic. And fifth, Marcus continued, a public apology from Atlantic Airways acknowledging systemic failures in equal treatment of passengers. Patricia paused. Marcus, a public apology could expose us to significant legal liability. Patricia, your current legal liability is already significant. There are approximately 4,000 people watching this conversation live. Your stock has dropped 2.1% in the last 2 hours. Your choice is between controlled transparency and uncontrolled crisis. Legal counsel whispered something in Patricia's ear. She nodded grimly. A conditions accepted, she announced. The crowd at the gate erupted in applause. At Skywatcher's comment section exploded with celebration emojis. But Marcus wasn't finished. There's one additional requirement, he said. The conference room fell silent. I want real-time implementation, not promises, not future commitments, changes implemented within 72 hours. That's impossible, protested VP of Operations Michael Torres. Union agreements, legal reviews, system updates. Marcus interrupted. Michael, I've reviewed your operational capabilities. When weather emergencies require rapid schedule changes, you can reorganize your entire system in 6 hours. When you have the will, you have the way. Patricia leaned back in her chair. What specifically do you need in 72 hours? Marcus pulled up another document on his tablet. Miss Mitchell and Captain Rodriguez terminated within 24 hours. Replacement training materials developed and deployed within 48 hours. Anonymous reporting system operational within 72 hours. And if we can't meet that timeline? Marcus looked directly into the camera. Then Chen Industries will divest our Atlantic Airways holdings and recommend that our network of partner companies do the same. The threat was devastating. Chen Industries wasn't just a large investor. They were connected to dozens of other corporations that collectively represented millions in annual travel spending. Board member Jennifer Walsh asked, Mr. Chen, how do we know these changes will be sufficient? You don't, Marcus replied. but you'll have quarterly reviews with independent auditors to track progress. Full transparency, public reporting. Patricia looked around the conference room. Her board members were nodding. The legal team was scribbling notes frantically. The stock price continued its decline. "Marcus, we accept all conditions." The crowd at the gate erupted again. Several passengers were wiping away tears. Dr. Voss was shaking her head in amazement. But Marcus still wasn't done. "There's one final element," he said. "Personal accountability." Patricia's expression tightened. "What do you mean?" "Executive compensation should be tied to diversity and inclusion metrics." "Starting with your compensation, Patricia." The conference room went dead silent. 20% of executive bonuses tied to measurable improvements in equal treatment outcomes. Quarterly assessments, public reporting. Patricia stared at the screen for a long moment. Around the conference table, 8 board members waited for her response. "Agreed," she said finally. Marcus nodded. "Then we have a framework for moving forward." He looked around the gate area one more time. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize again for the delay. However, I hope you can see that sometimes delays serve a greater purpose." The crowd broke into sustained applause. Janet Williams stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, what happens now?" Marcus smiled for the first time since the incident began. "Now, Janet, we fix the system, and we make sure every passenger is treated with dignity and respect." He looked back at the camera. "Patricia, I'll expect the implementation timeline by email within 4 hours." "You'll have it in 2, she replied. Marcus closed his tablet and picked up his briefcase. "Now, I believe Flight 447 was supposed to depart 45 minutes ago. Shall we get these passengers to Chicago?" The transformation was immediate. Janet was issuing instructions to her staff. Sarah Mitchell was being escorted away by airport security. Captain Rodriguez was having his credentials reviewed by supervisors. A new flight crew was already being assembled. Addressing another address, Skywatcher addressed her live stream audience. "Chat. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. One man just changed an entire airline's policies in real time." As Marcus finally boarded his flight in seat 1A first class, Dr. Voss leaned over from 3B. "Mr. Chen, that was incredible. How did you stay so calm through all of that?" Marcus settled into his seat and opened his laptop. "Dr. Voss, anger is temporary. Systems change is permanent. I'd rather build something lasting than just vent frustration." The plane pushed back from the gate 53 minutes late. But it was carrying more than passengers to Chicago. It was carrying the promise of change. 71 hours later, Marcus Chen sat in his Chicago office reviewing implementation reports from Atlantic Airways. His assistant, Maria Santos, had arranged the documents chronologically on his mahogany desk. "The termination letters were executed yesterday," Maria reported. "Sarah Mitchell and Captain Rodriguez were dismissed with cause. Janet Williams was demoted to training coordinator and will undergo mandatory sensitivity counseling." Marcus nodded, reviewing the documentation. "What about the replacement protocols?" "New crew training materials went live this morning. Every Atlantic Airways employee will complete 8 hours of bias recognition training within the next 30 days. The anonymous reporting system launched at 6 a.m. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Atlantic Airways stock rebounds after swift discrimination response. Shares up 3.2%. The market had responded positively to decisive action. Investors appreciated companies that addressed problems quickly rather than letting them fester. Patricia Vance had appeared on CNBC that morning, announcing the Dignity in the Skies initiative. The interview had been watched 847,000 times in 6 hours. "Mr. Chen's experience was unacceptable," she had said directly to the camera, but his response showed us how to turn a failure into an opportunity for meaningful change. The anonymous reporting system had already logged its first complaint. A passenger on Flight 892 reporting discriminatory treatment by ground staff in Denver. The complaint was being investigated by a third-party firm within hours, not weeks. Marcus's computer chimed with an incoming video call. Patricia Vance appeared on screen, looking considerably more relaxed than she had 3 days ago. "Marcus, I wanted to give you the first quarterly report personally." She shared her screen, showing a comprehensive dashboard of metrics. Discrimination complaints down 67% in just 3 days. Customer satisfaction surveys show marked improvement. Most importantly, we've had 12 employees proactively report bias incidents they've witnessed. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "That's the real victory, Patricia. When employees feel empowered to speak up." The training program has been requested by 6 other airlines. We're licensing it through a nonprofit organization with proceeds funding diversity scholarships. "Excellent. What about the executive compensation metrics?" Patricia smiled. "Board approved unanimously. 20% of all C-suite bonuses now tied to diversity and inclusion outcomes. First quarterly review is next month." Marcus pulled up his own metrics dashboard. Chen Industries tracked their vendor relationships meticulously. "Atlantic Airways is back to being our preferred airline partner," he confirmed. "Chen Industries will increase our travel spending by 15% this quarter." "That's wonderful news. Marcus, I have to ask, how did you know exactly what levers to pull?" Marcus considered the question. "Patricia, I've been discriminated against before. But I've also been in boardrooms for 20 years. I understand how corporations make decisions. The key is aligning moral imperatives with business incentives. The whole incident has become a Harvard Business School case study," Patricia mentioned. "They're calling it stakeholder activism in real time." After ending the call, Marcus walked to his office window overlooking Lake Michigan. The view reminded him why he loved Chicago. A city built by immigrants and outsiders who refuse to accept limitations. His phone rang. Dr. Patricia Voss from Flight 447. "Mr. Chen, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from your foundation's website." "Not at all, Dr. Voss. How can I help you?" "I wanted to tell you that what you did inspired me to take action in my own workplace," Dr. Voss said. "I'm head of emergency medicine at Northwestern Memorial. We've had our own issues with bias in patient treatment. I presented your Atlantic Airways case to our board last week." Marcus smiled. "What was their response?" "We're implementing a similar anonymous reporting system for bias incidents, and we're requiring all staff to complete unconscious bias training. Your approach, using data and systematic change rather than individual blame, it really resonated." "That's exactly what needs to happen," Marcus replied. "One incident becomes a catalyst for broader change. The medical community is calling it the Chen Protocol, using documented discrimination incidents to drive institutional reform rather than just individual punishment." After Dr. Voss hung up, Marcus reviewed the broader impact metrics his team had compiled. The hashtag Dignity in Skies had been used 47,000 times across social media platforms. But more importantly, it had spawned 12 copycat initiatives at other transportation companies. Greyhound bus lines had announced their own bias training program. Amtrak had hired a chief diversity officer. 3 major hotel chains had implemented anonymous reporting systems. His assistant brought in a stack of letters from passengers who had experienced similar discrimination. Each letter shared a story, thanked Marcus for speaking up, and many included documentation of their own incidents. One letter stood out. It was from a young black woman named Angela Thompson, a recent MBA graduate. "Mr. Chan, I was on United Flight 237 last month and experienced almost identical treatment to yours, but I didn't have your resources or platform. I just endured it and filed a complaint that went nowhere. Watching your live stream showed me that discrimination doesn't have to be accepted silently. I'm now working with the ACLU to document systematic bias in airline treatment. thank you for showing that change is possible." Marcus added Angela's letter to a growing file. Her case would become part of a larger class action lawsuit that would ultimately force industry-wide changes. The true measure of success wasn't just Atlantic Airways reforms. It was the ripple effect across an entire industry. 3 months later, the Department of Transportation announced new federal guidelines requiring airlines to track and publicly report discrimination complaints. The regulations were nicknamed the Atlantic Airways Rules after the incident that sparked them. Marcus received a call from Transportation Secretary Michael Rodriguez, no relation to the terminated captain. "Mr. Chen, your Atlantic Airways case provided the political momentum we needed to implement comprehensive anti-discrimination regulations. 6 major airlines have already adopted your recommended protocols, voluntarily, rather than wait for federal mandates." The Chen Foundation had expanded its focus to transportation equality, funding legal representation for passengers facing discrimination. In 6 months, they had supported 43 cases across airlines, bus companies, and rideshare services. Marcus often reflected on the moment when Sarah Mitchell first told him to move to the back of the plane. That single incident of discrimination had become a catalyst for systematic change affecting millions of travelers. But the most satisfying outcome was personal. Last month, Marcus had flown Atlantic Airways Flight 447 again, the same route, the same aircraft type. The flight attendant, a young black man named David, had welcomed him aboard with genuine respect. "Mr. Chen, it's an honor to have you flying with us today. Is there anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable?" Marcus had looked around the first-class cabin and noticed the diversity of passengers, different races, ages, clothing styles, all being treated with equal professionalism and respect. "David, you're already doing everything perfectly." That was the real victory, not the corporate policy changes or the media attention or the stock price recovery. It was the simple fact that the next passenger who looked like Marcus, or didn't look like him, would be treated with dignity. The transformation was complete. The system had changed. 2 years after Flight 447, Marcus Chen stood at the podium of the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, delivering the keynote address for their annual Transportation Equality Summit. The auditorium was packed with 800 attendees, more seats than the airline executives, civil rights lawyers, government officials, and activists. But Marcus could see beyond the crowd to the millions watching the live stream. "Change doesn't require violence," he told the audience. "It doesn't require lawsuits or protests or public shaming. It requires documentation, leverage, and systematic thinking." He clicked to his first slide, a graph showing discrimination complaints across all major airlines. Since the Atlantic Airways incident, airline discrimination complaints have dropped by 71% industry-wide. Not because discrimination disappeared overnight, but because airlines implemented systems to prevent it. The graph showed a dramatic decline starting in late 2025, continuing through 2026, and into 2027. This is what happens when you change systems instead of just punishing individuals. The audience included Sarah Mitchell, the former flight attendant who had triggered the entire incident. After her termination from Atlantic Airways, she had undergone extensive bias training and now worked as a diversity consultant, helping other companies avoid the mistakes she had made. She raised her hand during the Q&A session. "Mr. Chen, I'm Sarah Mitchell. I was the flight attendant on Flight 447. A murmur went through the crowd. This was unexpected. "Sarah," Marcus said warmly, "thank you for being here. I wanted to publicly apologize again, but more importantly, I wanted to thank you. Your response changed my life. I understand now how my unconscious biases hurt people. I've spent 2 years learning to be better." The crowd erupted in applause. This was the real power of systematic change. It could transform perpetrators into advocates. "Sarah, Your courage in facing your mistakes and working to prevent others from making them is exactly what this movement needs. Marcus clicked to his final slide, a photo of Angela Thompson, the young woman who had written to him after her own discrimination experience. Angela Thompson used documentation and legal advocacy to win a landmark settlement against United Airlines. That settlement funded bias training for 47,000 airline employees across the industry. The audience stood and applauded as Angela walked onto the stage. Angela's case proved that you don't need to be a CEO or a major shareholder to create change. You just need to be willing to document injustice and demand accountability. Marcus looked directly into the live stream camera. These touching stories remind us that change happens when ordinary people refuse to accept discrimination as normal. When we document injustice systematically, when we demand accountability from institutions, when we use our economic power strategically. He paused, letting the words sink in. Every person watching this has experienced unfair treatment or witnessed it happening to others. Your stories matter. Your documentation matters. The live stream chat was flowing with personal experiences, commitments to action, and expressions of gratitude. If you've witnessed discrimination in transportation, document it, record it, report it. Share your real-life stories, because these Black stories and life stories become the foundation for systematic change. Marcus concluded with a direct challenge. Don't just watch injustice happen. Don't just feel bad about it. Do something about it. Use the tools we've developed. Use the systems we've built. Help us create a world where everyone travels with dignity. The screen displayed the Transportation Equality Foundation's website and reporting tools. Share this video. Tell your friends about these resources. Subscribe to stay informed about our progress, because together, we can ensure that what happened on Flight 447 was the last time, not just another time. The applause continued for 3 full minutes as the live stream viewer count hit 150,000. Change had become contagious.